I never thought a normal Friday shift would change my entire life. I was just doing my job, serving tables like I always do. Then he walked in Steph Curry. But that's not the miracle. The miracle was what happened when he left. Jessica was a 28-year-old waitress working at Bayside Bistro, a small but welcoming restaurant located in a busy Oakland neighborhood. The place was famous for attracting everyone from local workers to curious tourists looking for authentic California cuisine. Jessica dedicated herself to her work with a smile always on her face, although inside her life was far from easy. As a single mother, Jessica faced a tremendous challenge. Her 6-year-old son, Tyler, was hospitalized due to a congenital heart condition. That required urgent and very expensive surgery. Jessica's salary barely covered daily expenses, and the hospital bills only continued to grow. Despite everything, she kept her faith and worked hard, hoping for some kind of miracle. The routine at the restaurant started early. Jessica arranged the tables, prepared the atmosphere for customers, and always maintained a welcoming tone with everyone who entered. She was known for her friendliness among regular customers, although the weight of her situation often showed in moments of distraction. That Friday morning, the day began like any other. The restaurant was lively with the usual flow of customers. Jessica served dishes quickly, took orders, and exchanged pleasantries with those she served. The manager, Mr. Thompson, frequently praised her for her dedication, but also knew the difficulties she faced. When the clock struck 1:00 p.m., a murmur began to spread through the dining room. Some customers stood up and whispered among themselves. Jessica looked toward the door to see the cause of the commotion, and, to her surprise, Steph Curry, the famous basketball player for the Golden State Warriors, entered the restaurant, accompanied by some friends. The entire restaurant seemed to pause for a moment. Curry was a widely admired figure, and seeing a celebrity of such caliber in such a simple place was quite unusual. Jessica, however, maintained her composure. She took her notepad and walked to the player's table with the same friendly smile she always offered to any customer. "Good afternoon. Welcome to Bayside Bistro. My name is Jessica, and I'll be taking care of you today. May I start you off with something to drink?" Jessica smiled. Curry smiled back, polite and relaxed, and placed the order for himself and his friends. The interaction was brief, but enough for Jessica to realize how down-to-earth he seemed, unlike the grandiose image often portrayed in the media. The service continued normally, and Jessica made sure to attend to Curry's table with the same care and attention she dedicated to everyone else. However, the player's presence brought an atmosphere of excitement to the restaurant, with customers taking photos from a distance and whispering among themselves. Jessica couldn't imagine that this seemingly ordinary day would mark such a big turning point in her life, a gesture that would change everything. The restaurant was at its peak during that lunch hour. Curry and his friends chatted animatedly while Jessica remained attentive, ensuring nothing was lacking at their table. She was happy to be able to serve the player professionally, despite the pressure of curious glances and constant requests from other customers for selfies. At one point, Curry raised his hand, calling Jessica over. She quickly approached. "Is everything all right?" she asked with a smile, reflexively holding her notepad. "Everything's excellent." "Thank you," Curry replied, looking at his friends before turning his attention back to her. "We want to order dessert. Do you have any recommendations?" Jessica suggested the house's homemade desserts, highlighting the seasonal berry cobbler, which was the specialty of the house. Curry laughed and accepted the suggestion, ordering 4 portions for the table. As she returned to the counter to prepare the order, Jessica couldn't help but think how surreal that day was. Despite her life being filled with difficulties, serving Steph Curry was a moment that would surely remain etched in her memory. After finishing dessert, Curry asked for the check. Jessica quickly brought the receipt and handed it to him with a smile. "Thanks for taking such good care of us, Jessica." "The service was incredible," Curry said, looking her in the eyes sincerely. She felt a little embarrassed, but returned to the counter without giving it much importance. She was used to receiving compliments for her service, although she rarely felt valued enough in her routine. Minutes later, when Curry and his friends got up to leave, Jessica noticed he had left the payment and a small note on the table. Curious, she went over and picked up the paper. The message read, "Thank you for the wonderful service. God bless you and your family." Along with the note was the payment for the meal. But when she counted the amount, Jessica froze. Her eyes widened as she realized that Curry had left an unbelievably generous tip, something out of the ordinary. She needed a few seconds to process what was happening. The amount of the tip was enough to cover almost all of Tyler's surgery. This simple gesture of generosity meant the difference between life and death for her son. Jessica couldn't hold back her tears. Her hands trembled as she held the note to her chest, sobbing with emotion. An unexpected miracle. The commotion attracted the attention of other employees, and even some customers who were still in the restaurant. "Jessica, what happened?" asked Mr. Thompson, concerned. He paid the bill, but the tip." She tried to explain, but the words seemed to get caught in her throat. Jessica, still emotional, ran to the door. There she saw Curry getting into his car and shouted, "Steph, thank you. You saved my son." Curry glanced back with a smile and made a simple peace and love hand gesture before stepping into the car and driving off down the road. Jessica went back inside the restaurant, still crying, but her heart was filled with thankfulness. What had begun as an ordinary lunch had completely changed her world. Jessica's emotions seemed to spread throughout the restaurant. Both customers and coworkers who saw what happened couldn't stop talking about Curry's kind-hearted action. Some started clapping, while others came over to comfort Jessica as she continued wiping away tears with her apron. "This is truly a miracle," Jessica said. Mr. Thompson gently rested a hand on her shoulder. "You truly deserve every cent of that tip," he told her. However, not everyone was in a joyful mood. Amber, another staff member at the restaurant, watched from afar, clearly displeased. She couldn't understand why Jessica had been the one to receive such kindness. "Really? He didn't even acknowledge me. Yet he gave all that money to Jessica just for doing the basics," Amber murmured to a coworker. Completely unaware of Amber's remarks, Jessica asked Mr. Thompson if she could leave a little early so she could head to the hospital with the money. She finally had enough to pay for Tyler's surgery, however. Before she could leave, Amber approached with a tone of voice that mixed irritation and sarcasm. "Congratulations, Jessica. Looks like good service now gets you lottery prizes. Maybe next time someone will give me a house." The comment was shocking to Jessica. She looked at Amber, trying to process the unexpected hostility. "Amber, this wasn't just about the service. I don't even know how to explain it, but it was an act of kindness. And to be honest, this money is for my son's surgery." "Remember, he's in the hospital," Jessica responded, keeping her calm. "All right. Always the struggling mother." "It's easy to play the victim and win everyone's pity," replied Amber, crossing her arms. The restaurant staff began to notice the argument. Mr. Thompson intervened, calling Amber to speak privately, but she refused and insisted on continuing. "I just think it's not fair. I work just as hard as you, Jessica, and I've never had any luck in life. It seems only those with a personal drama get rewarded." Jessica took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure despite the frustration. She didn't want to turn this moment of joy into a fight. "Amber, I'm really sorry you feel that way. I never asked anything from anyone, but if you were in my place, you'd be grateful too. It wasn't luck. It was a miracle." Jessica's words touched some people who were observing the argument. One of the customers who had witnessed the scene from the beginning stood up and interrupted. "Hey, don't turn this into something negative. Curry did that because he saw something special in Jessica's service. It was a good deed, and we could all learn from it." The tense atmosphere began to dissipate, and Amber, realizing the looks around her, backed down. "All right, I hope this helps your son," she said, walking away to the back of the restaurant. Jessica looked at Mr. Thompson, who smiled at her encouragingly. "Go, Jessica, your son needs you now." With that, Jessica left the restaurant and headed to the hospital, with the feeling that this money would not only change her life, but would also prove who she really was: a woman of faith, courage, and gratitude. A new hope. Jessica arrived at the hospital with her heart racing. The money in her bag seemed to weigh more than normal, but this time it was a weight that brought hope. She entered the reception, almost running, and went directly to the service desk. "Good afternoon. I'm here to pay for my son Tyler Wilson's surgery costs," she said with determination. The receptionist, surprised, quickly typed in the system and confirmed the amounts. "Would you like to pay in cash?" asked the woman, looking at her with curiosity. "Yes, in cash," replied Jessica, opening her bag and handing over the money. The feeling of relief was instantaneous, as if a ton had been lifted from her shoulders. While waiting for the receipt, Jessica looked down the hallway that led to Tyler's room. He had been hospitalized for weeks, and each day without surgery was a fight against time. Now, finally, she could ensure he would receive the treatment he needed. A few minutes later, Tyler's doctor, Dr. Mitchell, appeared at reception. He was an experienced man, known for his seriousness, but at that moment his face was lit up with a welcoming smile. "Jessica, we've just been notified that the costs have been paid. This is wonderful. We're going to arrange the surgery as quickly as possible," he said. Tears returned to Jessica's eyes. She thanked the doctor repeatedly, trying to express her gratitude between sobs of emotion. "You saved my son's life. Thank you for not giving up on us." Dr. Mitchell just smiled and put his hand on her shoulder. "You're an amazing mother, Jessica. And now Tyler will have the chance to grow up strong and healthy. Tyler's surgery and a new beginning." The news that the surgery would be scheduled for the next day was an absolute relief. Jessica ran to Tyler's room, where she found him playing with a toy car that one of the nurses had given him. "Mom!" shouted Tyler, upon seeing her with a smile that lit up the room. Jessica knelt beside the bed and hugged him tightly, feeling the purity of the love between mother and son. "My love, everything's going to be all right now. You're going to have your surgery, and soon we'll be home together." Tyler, still not fully understanding what that meant, just smiled and said, "I trust you, Mom." That night, Jessica stayed by Tyler's side at the hospital, silently praying and thinking about everything that had unfolded. Her thoughts drifted back to Curry and the small yet life-changing gesture he made. What began as a regular lunch turned into something that completely redirected her life. The next morning, the doctors began preparing Tyler for his surgery. Jessica stayed with him every step of the way until the operating room doors. She bent down, kissed his forehead gently, and whispered, "Mom's right here, and so is God. You're so brave, my little angel." The hours that followed were the longest Jessica had ever faced. Sitting alone in the waiting room, she held tightly to the note Curry had left, her anchor in a storm of fear and faith. Other parents glanced at her, sensing her mix of anxiety and hope. At last, Dr. Mitchell returned, this time with a wide, beaming smile. "Jessica," he said, "the surgery was a success. Tyler's doing very well." Jessica dropped to her knees, overcome with tears of joy and relief. "Thank you, God. Thank you, doctor. And thank you, Steph." Over the next few days, Tyler recovered quickly. Every smile, every movement, every word he spoke brought fresh waves of happiness to Jessica's heart. Watching her son regain his health felt like a dream come true, one she could never have imagined. Back at Bayside Bistro, the story had gone viral. Curry's generous act was lighting up social media, drawing attention from all corners. After some customers shared videos and photos of the moment, many people were moved by Jessica's story and her dedication to her son. Mr. Thompson, the manager, was proud of her. "Jessica, you know what? This story showed the world that honest work and faith can transform lives." Jessica smiled, emotional, but despite the sudden exposure, she remained the same, humble and hardworking person. A few days later, as Jessica resumed her routine at the restaurant, she received an unexpected call. "Hello, Jessica. This is Marcus from Steph Curry's agency. He asked us to get in touch with you. He was very moved by your story and wants to help you even more." Jessica was left speechless as she listened to how Curry had decided to cover all of Tyler's future medical expenses and offer a small fund to ensure she had more financial stability. That same weekend, Curry shared a post on his social media about his experience at the restaurant. "I met an incredible person named Jessica who served me with so much care without knowing who I was, and that inspired me. May we all remember to help our neighbors. No matter the size of the help, every gesture counts." The post went viral, drawing more attention to Jessica's story. Many people mobilized, offering support and even donations so that she and Tyler could have a more peaceful life, a future full of hope. Back at the hospital, Jessica reflected on everything that had happened, sitting next to Tyler's bed, who was now playing and talking animatedly. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a very long time. "Mom, are you crying again?" Tyler asked, curious. Jessica smiled, gently wiping her tears. "Yes, sweetheart, but this time they're happy tears." To Jessica, Curry's act wasn't just about the money. It was a powerful reminder that kindness still exists in this world, and that sometimes miracles show up when we least expect them. That night, as she tucked Tyler into bed, Jessica pulled out the note she had carefully kept in her purse. "Thank you for the amazing service. May God bless you and your family." Jessica knew those words would stay with her forever, a symbol that even in the darkest times, light can shine from the most unexpected places. "I didn't ask for a miracle that day. I was just doing my job the best I could, like I always do. But sometimes life surprises you. Sometimes the person who changes everything is just someone sitting at your table." Steph Curry didn't just leave behind a generous tip. He gave her hope. And hope changes everything. And you? If you had the power to change someone's life, would you? Even the smallest acts of kindness can make the biggest difference. Share this story and remember, sometimes the simplest moments become the most extraordinary.